Welcome back, Automators, for another episode of the Automator Series. And today I'm with the magical Zoe Knight, all the way from the sticks in the UK. So firstly, thanks so much for taking the time today.
No, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, me too. I mean, on that note, I'd love to kind of just kick it off by having you introduce yourself, say hi to everyone, and then just kind of give a bit of an introduction to yourself, what you're doing in the spiritual analytic space, your passions, a little bit about you.
Sure. So hi to everyone. My name is Zoe, as Gavin's introduced, and I am a life and business coach, and I work mostly with creative business owners, and I help them to realign and reconnect to their joy, basically, when they've got to a place of feeling stuck and they've lost that energy and their passion and their love for their business. I help them reconnect to that and bring that back to the core of what they do. And, you know, we all feel this in our business. There's ups and downs, peaks and troughs all the time. But sometimes when you get to that low and it's just not going back up, that's like really uncomfortable feeling. I don't know if you've been there yourself, Gavin. Like, I know I felt that before, and it's just not getting better. And that's where I kind of work with people and help them come out of that place. So yeah, that's kind of who I work with and what I do. And the reason when I say creative business owners, I don't mean like, so, because sometimes I feel I need to clarify that with people, because in your head you automatically go, artists and really vibrantly creative people like that. And yes, I do have clients like that as well, but anyone that resonates with that. And I think like I consider myself really creative, but I am useless at any of that kind of stuff. I am useless at drawing and art because I just don't have the patience, but I like problem solving, and I think that's a creative thing. And I think as human beings, we are naturally very creative people. So yes, I work with, I've got a potter and a writer and someone who designs bespoke kitchens. That's quite unique. But I also have, VAs and anyone that just resonates with that message, I suppose. And I think I went down that focus, the creativity route, because it's fun. It's fun to get creative, and it means that I can bring creativity into my coaching as well. And when I first started out, I sort of went there, everybody tells you must niche, you must have, a real clear ideal client avatar and all that. And so I sort of played with that. And then everyone was suggesting, oh, you should go with who you were before. So I'd kind of gone into the relationships, like not relationships, but after a breakup. So rediscovering yourself after a breakup. But because that was a journey I've been on. I know that journey. But I found that it was attracting people. And this was very much a lesson for me as well. This could have been about my own messaging, but it was more attracting people that wanted to dwell in the past rather than look to the future. And that wasn't fun for me. So, I wanted to help them look forward and move on and discover themselves and all that kind of thing. So I've gone back to creatives, and it feels much more natural. My messaging feels much more natural. So that's who I work with and what I do.
No, beautiful. I mean, you say creative is like not a niche, but it kind of is a niche, because I mean, you've mentioned you've worked with potters and VAs. Like, it is quite a wide range of backgrounds, but it's also how the person, the way I kind of heard it, it's also how the person themselves sees themselves. It's like if they see themselves as a creative, they're going to be like, that's me type of thing. Otherwise, exactly. Some people who are very maybe technical or very focused on the end goal and very procedural type of thing, they maybe won't see themselves as a creative type, and then they just kind of that wouldn't resonate with them. So I do see that as a niche. It's almost like a niche in the personality type.
Yeah, and I think with niching, like, it's one of those things. It's always a work in progress, isn't it? Like, it could always be better. My messages could always be clearer. But if it's speaking to someone, like, then it's speaking to someone. If they're resonating with your message, if you're getting clients, then that's working, isn't it? Like, if it's if you're not getting any clients, then maybe you need to think about that. I know that I could be definitely sharper with my messaging, but as I say, it's a work in progress. But yeah. it's working at the moment.
No, I mean that's I love kind of how you already explained a bit of the journey of going from thinking you wanted to do almost relationship focused stuff, you weren't finding the people you actually enjoyed working with, they didn't make you feel good, and then you kind of went in a direction that felt better for you as well. I think that's a big thing is also just working with people that you enjoy working with. Otherwise, it's
Yeah.
going to be like an absolute grind in the long run.
Yeah, and I think like for me, well, I don't have to be, I suppose, but it's important to me to be inspired by my clients as well. I
Mm.
love my clients and I am on that journey with them, and I want the best for them, and I'm their biggest cheerleader. And so I need to be, there needs to be that connection there and that alignment with each other. And I think that's really important. And I think when you start out your coaching business, you do work with lots of people, and you will work with people that maybe you don't want to, because you feel like you need to say yes to people. And
Yeah.
I think that's something you learn on that journey, is actually that relationship. It is it's a close relationship, it's confidential, so you need to have that kind of connection with the other person,
Mm.
which is why I think, choosing a niche that is something that you are passionate about. So my passion is, so my top core value is
Mm.
freedom in everything, freedom to be the person you want to be, to live the life you want to live, the way you want to live it. And I think that's what's kind of drawn me there, because like with creatives, they want to, they're business owners, they want to make a living doing what they want to do, and I want
Mm.
to help people with that. Because I think when when you're working from that place in alignment and doing the thing you want to do, that makes you feel happy, and then that
Mm.
impacts on the people around you, and then there's just this big ripple effect, because you're feeling good, so you're behaving in better ways, making better choices, and it's just this beautiful ripple effect. And you think, well, if everybody in the world was living the life they wanted to do rather than what they feel they should do or what someone else is telling them to do, then
Mm.
that would be a huge impact on the world.
Yeah. Well, from many of the people I've spoken with in this series, I mean, they had that kind of experience. They were in corporate jobs, which a lot of them were really successful at, top positions, managerial roles, men, women, everyone. They were doing really well, and they were just like, "There's more to this." Like that's kind of when you realize you're not quite operating in alignment with yourself. You're like, "This isn't like what I wanted. This isn't kind of. This doesn't feel right."
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, so my journey, I don't have a corporate background, and so in a way, some of the feeling of coming into like building up my own business has been more of a, oh, I've come from a small background and I don't know, I'm who am I to, all that general imposter syndrome stuff, who am I to do this, etc. But
Yeah.
I always wanted to be an actress, and I went traveling for 2 years when I was young, and did lots of exciting adrenaline-filled stuff, your skydiving and your bungee jumping and your aeroplane acrobatics, all that stuff. And which is where, when I got to Bali was my favourite place in all my travels. I went back there
Mm.
3 times. I loved it so much. Um, and everything, I enjoyed all of that adrenaline stuff. Nothing gave me the same buzz I had of going just before I was about to go on stage. So I wanted to be an actress. So I was going to come home, do that. And then I met my husband, and like I didn't want to do a long distance relationship, because my plan was I was just going to go to London and be a waitress and do lots of auditions and get a break, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So my plans changed, and so I was down to plan B, which was animals. Like I love animal welfare, I'm passionate about that as well. I think it probably links into the freedom part of animals being able to be free and looked after correctly, etc. Anyway, so I did that, but those jobs, I loved what I did. They were very low paid, minimum wage type jobs that was in practical, hands-on animal care, and I loved it. But there was not a lot of career progression for me there, but I
Mm.
was happy. And then I had kids, and I had postnatal depression, and I had, and so there were all these things, and my marriage wasn't going too well. And there was just unhappiness. And I looked, coaching wise, I love people, and I was always that person at school. I was that agony aunt. I was the person that my friends talked to. And so I'd wanted to look into it. But I had taken on all of these other fears, like that weren't mine. Basically, they were my husband's fears about being self-employed, fears that I would stick to anything, whatever it was. And the month that we separated, it was like cutting a tie. I went to London and did my first course in coaching, and have never looked back, because I realized, this is what I want to do. This is me. These are not my fears. These are not my worries. And that was huge, like realizing that I'd taken on other people's things. And I think when you're saying, other people you've spoken with have come from corporate backgrounds, and it's that feeling of this is me, and then it's going, no, this is not me. This is not who I am. I have got this calling, and and it's been an amazing journey since then. That was like 3.5 years ago, and it's been wonderful.
But wait, was that transition just like that? Like you guys split up and you were like, I'm going to do the coaching? Or was there a bit of a journey of kind of working through it, trying to kind of rediscover yourself a bit?
There was, so the going into coaching was immediate. It was the same month, and I have never looked back. It's just been growth since then. Of course, like there has been my own personal journey and personal development since then, and processing the end of my marriage, and as I mentioned, I've got kids with him, and like he's a good guy. It wasn't messy. I'm very grateful for that we had just grown apart, really. So, and in ways that was quite tough, because it felt like, well, I want to be with you for the rest of my life, and it should have worked. And then I did all of that, but there's actually the getting into the coaching and all of that personal development work, because you can't coach someone where you haven't gone yourself. Like I personally think you need to not understand their situation so much, but you need to be able to go there, and you've got to have done your own inner work. And so like my own growth has been huge. It was a lot of rediscovering who I was, not the wife, not the mum, who Zoe is again. And I'm definitely in a much happier place since focusing on doing what I want, and clearing some of my own limiting beliefs and all of that kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's just crazy though. It just reminds me kind of how crazy it is, how big of an impact the people around us can have. It's like, and it's really interesting how fast it was for you. Like the moment you kind of were away from those kind of the mindsets of other people, how quickly you switch back to your own almost. You're like, oh wow, those weren't mine at all. You kind of jump back right into it. I think a lot of people, if you spend long enough with them, their mindsets kind of rub off, and it does kind of become you a little bit. And then you have to do a lot of work and dig into rediscover what's those true mindsets you had.
Yeah, because you become a we, don't you? I mean, we were together for 14 years. I was with him for like my whole adult life, really. But I don't know why that bit was so quick. I mean, I imagine there were other things that have taken me longer. I'm sure there are other things that I'm still processing and still come up sometimes. And so maybe for me, that was just I think I'd thought about that for a long period of time. There had been many times over the years where I had gone to look into it. And so, well, you won't. When I had kids, like, you want to have a big change, and quite a lot of the time, I think women do this quite a lot. It's like a dramatic change. I'm going to chop all my hair. Like, I've got really long hair, and I went real short, like pixie hair. It's like, I need to change who I am. And because you've sort of lost your identity, because then you're a mum and everyone's like, oh, baby, baby, baby. And I love my children. They are absolutely awesome and wonderful now. But I think maybe there was a part of that, like when we split up, it was like, no, actually, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do this thing that I want to do because I can now, and it's for me. And it happened to be the very right thing for me. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I'd gone and done something else. But I think because I'd had that in my mind for so long, it just worked out.
Yeah, no, it's really powerful. I mean, and in regards to the coaching that you did, the training you went through, kind of how long was that? What was that experience kind of like for you?
So I went to London. I did a weekend course. It was just an introduction course into life coaching. And that kind of instilled in me, like, yes, this is what I want to follow. So then I went and did some research. I spoke to some coaches that I knew of and found out about different types of training. And then I went to the university in the city nearest to me and did a course there with them for a year. So that finished kind of June 2019, 2 years ago. And then after that, I just went out there and coached because it's really easy to get into that habit of, oh, I must know more, I must know more, I must learn that next thing, I must do that next course. And of course, like since then, you know, I have done other learnings, I have done other trainings and stuff, but I knew that to build my confidence, I had to do the coaching, like I had to do the thing. So I went out, I coached lots for free to give me that experience, to build my confidence. And then I got to a point where I knew what I was offering was of value. And so then I had to face that all of those money mindsets and, okay, I've got to have a conversation, I've got to ask for money, and I've got to charge people. And how do I charge people for doing something that I just love so much? And as I mentioned, my previous employment was very low wage, and coaching is much higher than that. So it was like, I don't get paid that kind of money. So I had to overcome quite a lot of my own money mindset stuff for that. So yeah, like I would definitely advise people, if they're getting into it, like go do the work, like get coaching experience, because that is what's going to make you feel more confident in yourself about doing it. And I know a lot of the time I get asked, where did you find that experience? Because, you know, you can ask your friends and family so much, but actually it's not always ideal doing it with friends and family because they're just that bit too close and you can feel awkward. So I'd gone on to lots of different Facebook groups that offered free coaching. And so I would just, like, there were coaching swaps and stuff. If somebody had a request, I'd say, yes, I'll coach you. Or I'd just put something out and say, does anybody want any free coaching? And actually that was fantastic for me, because at the time I was a single parent. And so there were lots of people from America and Australia and all over the world, which meant that I could put my kids to bed and then I could coach them. So it was hard work for me, like it was full on. I might start coaching at 10 or 11 at night, but the time zone meant it worked for them. It meant that my children were finally asleep by then. I was obviously still having a job in the day. And so that made it work. And actually that was a blessing for me, because it meant I was used to doing coaching online. So when last year happened, it was like, well, I know how to do this. I've got this. Yeah. So yeah.
That coach and swap, the group sounds really interesting. I hadn't heard about anything like that before. Do you just kind of search like coach and swap, or what are these groups normally called?
I think, do you know what? I can potentially go and find it. I don't think I'm in it anymore, but there was definitely one. I think if I Googled like, or Facebook searched like free coaching, free coaching groups or something like that. And there are lots of other coaching groups that like supporting coaches. And I'm sure in there, like people want to help each other. Like the coaching industry is quite lovely, really. They get it. Like they get coaching, they get you need to learn. And so they're happy to do that. So, and if you find, you know, so with people on my course, sometimes we would call up and do coaching with each other. So if you make some connections, and they can, you know, with the access of social media now, they could be anywhere in the world, and just build those relationships where you can do that with each other. It just really, really helps.
Yeah. I think that's really cool, actionable advice. Like I hadn't heard about those groups before, so that's another place that someone could check out if they're just starting, or if they want to just kind of get those reps in, like you're saying, learning by doing. Because also what I've also consistently seen with people is many people said, yeah, I just started letting my family know, my friends know what I was doing and that I'm doing life coaching and could I work with them? And that's also how a lot of people seem to have got their first essentially clients, like working for free, but they got the learning and they got the experience. They finally understood what it's like to coach someone. They got potentially testimonials and results. They start to work out what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, Gavin. Like there still needs to be an energetic exchange of some sort, because that's your time, and time's really valuable. So yes, you might be new to it, but ask them for some feedback if you're really new, or ask them for just a little review or something, and they won't mind. They really won't mind doing that for you. And yeah, they call it low-hanging fruit, don't they? Like, who do you know, who can you reach out to in your circle or in your wider circles? And we all know people, but I think part of what comes with that is that fear of judgment. So you still got to do the ask, haven't you? You've got to ask someone, or in that group message, or put it out on Facebook, like, I'm starting this now. If anybody wants some coaching around something, let me know. But there's that fear of, well, what people are going to think of me doing that, and you've sort of you've got to get over it. You've just got to do it.
No, I mean, that's the big thing. It's like those first few posts of like, hey, I'm starting this, would love to work with someone. Very, very realistically, it could be absolute crickets on those first few times. But if you can't kind of handle those couple of roadblocks and power through it, it's like you're not going to kind of get there unless you kind of have that strong enough why.
Well, no, like, because how do people know? Like, unless you tell them you're doing it, like, no one's a mind reader, are they? Unless they know, they can't ask you. So all you're doing is saying, look, I'm here to help. I'm here to help, and telling people. And then they've got the choice. Like, you're not going to force anyone to do that with you. So if they're coming to you, it's because they want to.
Yeah.
But you still need to tell them that you're available.
That's been a big mindset shift for me in the last 2 years. It's like, if you think you can help someone, even if you're completely off the mark, you just be like, hey, this is what I do. I think I can help you. Do you want to give it a bash? And it's like, people have the free choice to say yes or no. And if it's not the right fit, it wasn't the right fit ultimately. But it's like, you aren't forcing people into a decision. You just say like, hey, I want to try this. This is where I'm at. Do you want to try? As long as obviously there are people who kind of aren't so truthful with their messaging and things like that. But as long as you're upfront and honest, it's just like put the offer out.
Yeah. And like you say, what's the worst that can happen? Someone say no. I mean, likely someone's not going to say anything. They're going to say nothing. Yeah. I've got a Facebook group myself, and I have an Ask Me Anything. And I was speaking, so somebody had said in there, like, how do I get clients? How do I know? And I said, well, are you telling people about you? We sort of had this conversation.
Yeah.
And she said, I don't want to bombard them, and I don't want people time, being annoying them. And I said, we had this conversation, and I said to her, but how do they know that you're helpful? And I said, do you think you can help people? I'm like, I know the answer is yes. And she's really passionate about what she does. I'm like, so you're doing them a disservice by not telling them that you can help.
Yeah.
And, if you need to let them know that you're there. And I said, if you see something, do you stop and you think, oh my God, that's so annoying, they're posting that for the 3rd time this week? Or do you just scroll on by? Like, people just scroll on by. They don't even think about it. Nobody's thinking what you're thinking, they're thinking. They're not thinking that. And if they are, they're not your tribe anyway. Like, they're not your people. And so good, because you don't want to work with those people. You want the ones to support. But when I see people doing that now, when I see the same messages and the same posts, I think, great, like, you're promoting yourself, you're promoting your business. Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether it's for me or not, I still see that that's what they're doing. It's like, cool.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I used to, not even that long ago, when I would match with people on Facebook or become friends with someone, the very first message is like, hey, how's it going in your side of the world or whatever. Or it's like, I knew exactly which direction it was going. I would kind of get that I would kind of get that like little annoyance bubbling up. But then I obviously had to start doing outreach for myself more consistently. And I was like, now I'm just like, it's just a person trying to hustle. They're just trying to make things happen. It's like, we're all just trying to do the best things for ourselves. Well, to help people, but we're just all trying to make it work.
Yeah. And that's really interesting, Gavin, because so we've connected on Facebook because your friend requested me at some point. And I know that it'll be that way around, because I still don't do that. And so on my Facebook page, this is still my personal Facebook page. I don't very often post about my business on there, and I know that there's a strong calling of, that should be your profile type thing, your work, your business.
Yeah.
And I'm still not there with that. I keep that on my business page and LinkedIn and Instagram, whatever. And I used to be really funny with friendships requests. Like, if I literally, my rule was, if I need to know you and I'm going to stop and say hello to you if I saw you in the street. And if I know you, but I'm not even going to say hello to you, like you're just an acquaintance, then I'm not going to accept it. And then obviously things became more online, and I've been networking in groups and build relationships. It's like, okay, I can make, yes, I'll accept that. But I still needed to know them. And I've got great friends that way now. But I still would never accept anything that, if I didn't know anyone, like if I've never even had a conversation with you, even if we've got 50 mutual friends, why would I just don't get it. And then a couple of months ago, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, maybe, I thought, I'm just going to start accepting and see what happens, because see what, like you say, what people's approaches are, because I know that something's going to come. Sometimes, sometimes I never get a message from anyone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, a bit of an experiment, really. And so I started accepting people and seeing what approaches I liked, what approaches I didn't like, what I found really off-putting, what I quite warmed to. Because I'm doing a business accelerator course at the beginning of the year. And there were some great things in that, but there were some other things they were encouraging me to do which just aren't right for me. And so I think one of my tips to people starting out is you've got to do the thing. You've got to do things because you need to grow that comfort zone, and you're only going to do that by doing it. But it's still got to be something that is aligned with you, because if it's not, you're just going to, it's going to come across in the way that you do that, and it's going to be off-putting. And so, cold getting in people's inboxes isn't for me, and it wasn't for me. And so I know there's got to be a way that I need to be more proactive, because this business coach was saying to me, the way I get clients at the moment, people just come to me when they're ready. It's lovely. They've followed me for however long. They've grown that, built that know, like, and trust with me, and then they've come when they're ready, and it's lovely and easy, but it's very passive. And so she said, you need to be more proactive, and I agree, I do, but it needs to be in a natural, authentic way for me. And so I've been sort of looking at how people come across in my inbox, and as you say, it's going to come, but there are nice ways of going about it, and genuine ways of going about it, and there are other ways which must work. They must work. It must be a numbers game. I don't know, but that isn't for me. So find the one that's for you. I think I'm still working that out at the moment.
Yeah, but that's that goes back also to what you're saying about learning by doing. That's the best way to see if it actually feels good to you is by trying it. You might give it a kind of, what do they say, like a college try. You give it a bash and it doesn't feel good. You're like, okay, that didn't feel good to me, and then you find what's gonna kind of feel good, and then you're at least gonna stick with it. Because if it doesn't feel good, it's gonna feel like a chore every time you have to do those things for your business, or if it's building habits or anything. It's like, you need to make it easy for yourself in a certain sense, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yes, it is important to try those things. I think there's a difference in feeling uncomfortable about it and just going, no. And it's like listening to that. So trying, like anything, like doing Facebook Lives initially, like some few people love that. But most people find that quite intimidating, quite nervous, quite scary thing to do, to put yourself out there in front of all these people. But if you just do it, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, until that is then in your comfort zone. And the same with reaching out to people. It's the same with everything. But so yes, you do need to try those things. But then it's checking in with that kind of inner guidance, like, is this working for me? Is it how I want to be doing it? And if it's not, like, there's so many different ways to do a thing. Like I was reading, when you get like kind of down a rabbit hole reading other people's comments on Facebook. And I was doing that the other day, and it was another coach in another group. And she's got a very strong way of how she does things, and she's passionate about that. And there was someone that sort of didn't agree with her, and I was personally more from his way. Her way isn't for me at all.
Yeah.
But it was just really interesting. But I can see that she passionately believes in her way, and it works. And she's got lots of followers, and she's got lots of clients. So she coaches, and that works for them. That's great. But he's been a successful coach for 20 years, and his way has worked for him. So there's going to be a way that suits the way you want to do it. It doesn't you don't have to do the one that's really uncomfortable. You do have to get uncomfortable to grow that comfort zone. I think there's this line, and that's partly just knowing yourself and just being in touch with that that gauge of discomfort or out of alignment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you brought up the point of there's many ways to kind of do something, to do the same thing. I actually wanted to ask you this a bit earlier, but then we kind of went off on another direction. In regards to your coaching and your business coaching and life coaching, how does that kind of look for you when you work with people? Like, are you working? Do you like to do one-on-ones, or are you doing group stuff? Like, do you kind of put people on some of the same kind of path, or is it very tailored? It would be cool to hear how you go about it.
Yeah, so I still just do one-on-one coaching. I think group coaching is going to come down the line for me because I like variety, but I wanted to focus on one thing to start with, and that was building one-on-one clients. And I'm a very, what I would call a pure coach. I'm very non-directive. I 100% believe that my client has the right answer for them. So my job is to guide them to find their own answers. And so, yeah, I might offer different perspectives and lead to that perhaps, but I certainly am not going to give advice or suggestions because it's got to come from them. And so I have a program it's a 12 session 6-month program, and there's a general structure, but I absolutely don't do okay, week 1 we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then I just show up and I work with whatever shows up in them at the time, because things change on a daily basis, and what they might want to talk about, or what they've said next week, we're going to talk about this, maybe that's not on their mind, and maybe actually something else has happened, and that's what they're energized about at the time. So I just work with whatever comes. But I would say that what I find, like, I'm not a goal setting coach. Like, I can do goal setting with my clients, and I do get them to write actions down at the end of a session. I'm not particularly going to hold them accountable, like we talk about that next time, but I'm about getting the inner being bit right, because once that bit's right, then everything else happens. But you've got to get in there first, because what they come to me about, that's never the thing that I need to work with. Like, that's the external thing. It's like, what's inside blocking that then? So I like to kind of dig deep a little bit. Like, it's not really a session unless I've made someone cry. That sounds brutal. No, like, I used to find that really off-putting. People used to cry with me really easily. I just think I ask the right questions. I don't know, I see things, but and they'd cry. And at first I was like, oh my God, like, what do I do with that? And now it's like, if I've got someone crying, this is a good thing, because it means we've got somewhere, and it's like, now we can go somewhere else with that. We can release some of that stuff. So yeah, I'm not very structured in my coaching. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Like, I'm not very structured in my life either, really.
Well, I mean, I guess that also relates back to how you said you're very creative in how you approach things, and also the people you're working with are creative. So it's like, I guess, having a strong structure for every person that's the same would kind of defeat that a little bit. So you kind of have room to play with it and move with it in this case.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like, I can bring in different tools and different techniques depending on what I think that person needs. So I can do, with some clients, I've done somatic coaching, which is, so soma is the body, and it's sort of like a guided meditation. I take them into their body with a specific thing. circumstance, event, situation, whatever, feeling, because we store all that in our body. So I take them in there and work with it there. And that's always, there's always tears in that one. That's very emotional because stuff comes up that we don't think about. It's like we spend so much time in our heads, taking you out of your head and getting you into your body with that. It just brings up something completely different. So yeah, but I don't use that all the time. I don't use that very often actually, but I use it if I feel that there's something that needs it. So yeah, I think maybe I like the freedom to be able to do that with people as well.
Yeah, no, I really like the kind of range of stories that we were speaking about today, and that, like you said, the journey you had of starting with the relationship stuff, and also kind of where you came from, and what set you on the journey of business coaching, and kind of how you view it as more of a creative aspect and that kind of free flow. I think that's really cool perspectives that people are going to enjoy from this. I mean, any final takeaways you think people would really benefit from, or experiences of yours?
I think actually it's just ones that we've already covered. Get practice, get coaching, build your experience that way, try different things that work for you. Like, don't be afraid of trying new things. Don't be afraid of failing, because failing is, I don't agree with failing. Like, that's just a lesson. It's just a new way to learn, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, go out there and just try things. And do those uncomfortable things that are going to build your comfort zone. And actually, I think another thing I think is really key, especially in those first, 2-3 years, I suppose, is to spend some time reflecting on how far you've come, because it is hard work and it does take time to build. And so sometimes you can feel that you're not really getting anywhere. And actually, if you look back the past 6 months, 12 months, 2 months, whatever it is, actually, you have come far. You are doing things you weren't doing before. What once felt uncomfortable is now quite comfortable. Starting a group, starting a page, doing Facebook Live, starting an email list, like all of these things. I was like, I could never possibly do these things. And then it's like, oh, I'm doing these things now, and I'm leading these things, and I'm doing workshops and all this kind of, it's like, if you don't stop to reflect at how far you've come in that time, and then think about, well, if I've done that in that time, think about what I can be doing in the next 12 months. Like, I think that's quite important to give yourself that little bit of a boost, and just keep going and ask for help. People want to help, especially other coaches. They like to help other coaches and see people thrive. So
yeah, no, it's an awesome summary for us to wrap up on. What's like the best way if people want to reach out to you or work with you a little bit, or just kind of carry on the conversation with you? What's the best way for people to connect?
So I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, but I've got my own Facebook group now, which is 4 weeks old today. So I'd love people to come and join me in there. It's just a real community and support. There are other coaches, so it's for creative business owners, but there's a mix of me talking about sort of, mindset stuff, very coachy type stuff, what I would help people with. But also I've got other people in talking about more business related stuff. So tomorrow I've got someone doing a talk for me on content writing. I've had someone talk about websites. There'll be lots of other experts coming in about how to build your own business. So, you are more than welcome to come and join me in there. But if you just want to contact me, I'm pretty contactable on all platforms. We'll drop the links in with this. So yeah, and if you want to ask me any messages, like, I'm always happy to help, happy to get on a call with somebody and offer advice or whatever. Yeah, so get in touch.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for the time today, and we will definitely drop all the links in the bottom.
Perfect. Thanks. No, thanks, Gavin. It's been fun. I love talking about the journey.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Automator Series as much as I enjoyed having it. And there are 2 things I want you to do now. I want you firstly to follow me on YouTube, get that subscription in, because you're going to see all the new episodes popping up in that case, and you can stay on top of the series. And the second thing is, I want you to reach out to me. If anything we discussed on the episode today resonated with you in regards to potentially taking a jump into an online spiritual coaching business, or you really have a business and you're wanting to grow that out and you're feeling like you could be impacting a lot more lives, but you don't quite have the time right now, you don't quite have the freedom you wanted, and you don't quite have those systems in place, I want you to reach out to me. It's no pressure, no strings attached. Send me a message on Facebook, LinkedIn, email, whatever you prefer, and we can just have a conversation and a bit of a back and forth in regards to where you're at, what you're looking for, and how I might be able to help you impact more lives with what you're doing.